Well, friends, welcome to the Rebuilding Us podcast. I am so excited about the series that we are doing, you all. We are in this intimacy series. And as you all know, intimacy is my jam. I love talking to couples about not just how to have better marriages, not just how to communicate better, but really how do we get down into the weeds? How do we build holistic marriages? And so today I am really excited to introduce to you all the guests that we're going to have on the show. Monica and I actually met on Instagram. If When people say I met someone on Instagram, it's just so funny. But I came across Monica's podcast on Instagram, and she came across mine. And so we're doing a little podcast swap here. But I want to tell you a little bit about Monica and why you are really going to enjoy this conversation. So Monica Tanner is RLT trained. And for those of you who are not familiar with kind of therapy speak, that's relational life therapy. And so she's trained in that. She is a relationship coach. And as I said, she has her own podcast. Her podcast is called The Secrets of Happily Ever After. And so through her podcast, she helps to transform marriages. She also talks a lot about communication and connection, conflict resolution, commitment, all the things that you guys are hopefully working on in your own marriages. And Monica is on a mission really to help lower the divorce rate. We're going to talk about that because that's absolutely my mission as well. And she wants to help you not only to have good marriages, not only to have safe marriages, but to really thrive in your marriages. She's got a new book coming out, so she's a new author. Her new book is called Bad Marriage Advice. We're going to talk about that book and how you can actually get a copy of that. So without any further ado, Monica, welcome to the Rebuilding Us podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I am really excited to be here.
Yeah, it is such a privilege for me every time I meet a new friend in the space, especially for someone who is in the Christian marriage space. Not that everyone has to be in the Christian marriage space, because I've learned a lot from other therapists and coaches who are not believers. But this is a Christian marriage podcast, and I personally believe that this is God's way is the best way. And so anytime that I meet someone who also has a faith component to what they're doing, it just makes me so happy. So I'm really, really excited to see where this conversation will take us today.
Yeah, I think we're going to get along great.
Yeah. Well, funny. So you have a book coming out called Bad Marriage Advice. And I laughed when I first saw that title, because how many of us have had like that well-meaning grandma, or that well-meaning church mama, or that well-meaning brother or sister, big brother, big sister, somebody tell us, well, this is what you need to do to have a good marriage. And it's horrific advice. So I just want to start right there and say, probably, what is one, if you could think of like, what is the worst piece of marriage advice that you've ever received?
I think it's so funny because people always start with that question, what's the worst or what's your favorite? And I'm like, I have a whole book full of them. Like I have lots of favorites. I would say three of the most common ones. Oh gosh, four of the most common ones that I hear a lot that are just really quippy are the happy wife, happy life, right?
Yeah.
So like you
Mm-hmm.
see the guy who's interviewing all of the older couples, and the man is always like, she wears the pants, she's the boss, what she says goes, right? And I'm always like, no, that is the worst. That one's terrible. And when I polled my audience, that was the one that came up the most, is happy wife, happy life. Terrible advice. Don't ever go to bed angry. Really tough, because there is biblical backing a little bit for that one. But that is awful advice. And then I hear a lot people say, learn how to compromise. If you learn how to compromise, you'll have a good marriage. And I'm like, nope, don't do that either. And then I hear a lot, don't go to bed. Oh, divorce is not an option. We just take the word right off the table. It is not even there, right? And I'm like, well, that's a lie, because it's always there. So that's four of some of my favorites.
Hey there, Dana Shay breaking into the episode real quick to ask you, have you already subscribed to this channel? If not, why not? I know that you love what you see, so be sure to go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel right now. And while you're at it, turn those notifications on so that you can be notified every time I release a new video or short. So welcome to the community. Let's get back into the episode. That's good. All right. I want to go back to the whole don't go to bed angry, because you're right. Like that is scriptural. So we know that like that is God's intent, that we're not holding on to malice and bitterness and unforgiveness. But what is the better marriage advice? If we're not going to go to bed angry, then what should we do?
Yeah. Well, there is so much wisdom in a pause. right? So when I first got married, and when you asked what is the worst marriage advice I ever got, it was that. It was don't
Mm.
go to bed angry. And I felt like it was like an older couple who seemed happy. And, like I was like, they know, they certainly know, right? But my husband and I both, we built a business together while like actively having children. And so
Mm.
late at night, I would be exhausted from raising kids. He would be exhausted from like really like built a business from the ground up, meaning he would knock on doors, he would sell accounts, then he would service the account, then he would go back to the office, he would answer phone calls. I mean, he was, by the end of the day, he was exhausted. And so we would get in these little arguments, tiffs, like, right, we would just like get on each other's nerves. And he would be so tired, he'd be like, I can't talk to you right now. Like, I gotta go to bed. And I would just sit up and in bed and just like stew and like freak
Mm.
out. Like you like it first of all, it would trigger all my abandonment issues. But also I'm like, they told us we couldn't go to bed angry. You can't just go to bed. I'm still upset, right? And so I would either
Mm.
like sob loudly or I would reach over and like jostle him awake, and it would just make him more angry. All of it. He'd be like, I'm out of here. Like, I'm leaving the bedroom. Right. And then, of course, I would be like, he hates me. We're getting a divorce. This is the end of our lives. Like, seriously, like, it was horrible. And I lost so much sleep for years. And
Yeah.
after a little while, I would stop like trying to wake him up and I would just like cry softly and like
Mm.
journal and like try and figure out like, why he can sleep and I can't. And
Mm.
after a while, I just realized like maybe I should explain to him the experience I'm having when he goes to sleep. And so it took me a while, like lots of journaling, lots of like, and like I said, number one, like we got this marriage advice. We're not supposed to go to bed angry, right? So like we shouldn't be doing this. And he's like, we certainly shouldn't be arguing late at night because I'm going to say things that I can't take back and that I don't mean, which is very true, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what I said, I finally just explained to him, I'm like, I feel so abandoned and I just start to spiral when you just go to bed. And he's like, well, what can I do to help you with that? And I was like, oh, well, maybe you could say something like, I love you. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm too tired to talk right now. Let's talk about it in the morning. And so I
Mm.
think the most important part of that is let's talk about it in the morning. Now, see what would happen is that would calm my nervous system. And I was like, okay, you're right. We should sleep now while we're tired
Yeah.
and not thinking clearly. And then in the morning, what would happen is he wakes up before me, roll over, put his arm around me, and be like, I am so sorry we were fighting last night. Like, let's talk about it. And either it would be like, wait, what were we even fighting about? We were just so tired. Or like, hey, it really hurt my feelings when, or, this would help me if you could, this, right? And we
Mm.
always talked about it in the morning. And so being able to take a break whenever you're in a high stress situation, whether you're tired or you're hungry or you're stressed or lonely, or angry or agitated, right? We shouldn't be, that's not the time to be having important discussions about your relationship because you need to take care of those needs. You need to get some sleep, you need to get something to eat, and you go for a run and talk about when you're both like of sound mind.
Yeah, at your best. You said so much that I really want to kind of dissect a little bit. I think one of the most important things that you said is there's power in the pause. Hey friends, it's Dana Shay breaking into the episode real quick to let you know if you have not already gotten your copy of my brand new intimacy series guide, get your copy today. In this intimacy series, I am not only giving you my free checklist for whether you have chemistry or intimacy in your relationship. That's a self-check you can do. Not only am I giving you quizzes, not only am I giving you assessments, but I'm also going to be giving you some conversation starters. And this is literally my gift to you to make sure that you are building more intimacy in your marriage. It's one thing for us to talk about intimacy. It's another thing for us to have steps to know how to build that. So be sure to get your free download today. You can find that at danashay.com/intimacy series. All right, back to our show. Whether that pause is a good night's sleep, like a long pause, or whether that's just holding your tongue for 10 seconds, thinking about what you have to say before you say it. And two other things that you modeled is you said, I feel like, so when we're teaching I statements, right? Like I talk about this all the time. I'm sure you probably teach this too. But when you're trying to let your spouse or anybody know about you, you're saying, I feel blank. And then your husband's response is, how can I help? And as I
Mm.
was listening to you share kind of how this has worked itself out in your marriage, and he rolls over in the morning and he's like, how can I help you? I'm like, girl, that was not my marriage. Let me tell you how my marriage was set up. Okay. My marriage was, our pause lasted for about 2 weeks.
Mm.
So that would be called the silent treatment, which is
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah.
And then it was like, we're going to go back to that argument that we had 2 weeks ago before we started speaking. And these are all the things that you did wrong. And these are all the ways that you make me mad. And these are all the reasons. And then it just spirals and it cycles. And so, what we're talking about in this whole series is intimacy. And that is what you are modeling, is to say, first of all, to be vulnerable and open and honest enough to say, I feel. I feel like so many couples don't ever get there. It's always about like, you're doing this, or you're making me feel, right? You're making me feel mad. You're making me upset. But that's not telling your spouse how you feel. It's not giving them an inside peek as to what's going on with you. And so the other thing is, when you're constantly telling somebody about them, well, I don't know how to help you because you're basically accusing me of all the things. But when you say, I feel this way, then you then give space, like you just said, for your husband to be like, okay, I hear you. How can I help? What's something that I can do to help you to not feel that way? So I really hope that people caught that, because sometimes we're listening and it's like, all right, but that's not how me and my husband communicate, or that's not how my marriage sounds. But if people can just take those two pieces of advice, really, which is to pause long enough to get your thoughts together, to be of sound mind, to have these conversations when you're at your best, not when you're, hangry and lonely and tired and all of that. And also to use those I statements to be vulnerable and open enough to say, this is how I feel, with no judgment or any attacking toward you. And then to have that other spouse to be able to say, you know what? Okay, I got it. Now, what's my part?
Yeah, there's so
Yeah.
much in what you just said, but when I first got married, I was a very like there's lots of ways to describe it. I was a very anxious attachment style. I was very much the
Mm.
pursuer. I was very much a fixer. That was like all those were all my kind of adaptations and coping mechanisms. And so if he was upset or if we were in an argument, I would immediately need to fix it. Like I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry we're fighting. What can I do? Right? I was like way the pursuer and he was the distancer, right? And so the power of the pause, or the power of being able to take a pause asleep, was amazing for our marriage, because for the first several years I was the only one to apologize.
Mm.
Not because he didn't or couldn't apologize, but it was because I never gave him the opportunity, because I was like, I got to fix it. I got to fix it. What do I need to do? I'll fix it, right? But when we would go to sleep and he would wake up before me, that gave him the amazing opportunity to be like, I am so sorry we fought. I am so sorry I was mean last night. I'm sorry I was exhausted and, couldn't give you what you needed last night. Like, I was like, whoa, he apologizes. But it was
Mm.
because it was actually like giving him the opportunity to process through what happened and taking accountability for his part of it. So sometimes we get in our own way.
That's true. That's true. And you not even allowing him to be able to process and say, I was wrong. And again, I think that that goes to intimacy, right? Like intimacy. Well, before I even get into what I was going to say, let me ask you, Monica, how would you define intimacy?
Mm. Intimacy is, like you said, it's the ability to be very vulnerable. It's the ability to let your partner see who you are, see your mind, and
Yes.
the ability to also see their mind and allow for them, right? So intimacy is so, so, so powerful, but it does require a lot of vulnerability. And I'm working with a client right now where you were saying it's so vulnerable to be able to say, I feel like she cannot do that. It is so difficult and uncomfortable because at
Mm.
some point in her life, the adaptation she created was a wall, was a big wall, big barrier to protect herself, right? So for her to say, I feel scared or
Mm.
I feel sad about this is so difficult for her. So it
Yeah.
is vulnerable. It's hard, but to allow her partner to see that,
Mhm.
feel that, to feel with him, that's intimacy.
Yeah, it's so good when you are able to experience it. And I can speak from experience, play on words. I was not very vulnerable when we first got married. I thought I was. My
Mhm.
husband and I, we knew each other since we were 5 years old and 8 years old. Like we've known each other practically our whole lives. Our families were connected, but there were so many things that I would never. I couldn't really go into like I'm a very like happy go lucky person. I'm always up, right? Like I love joy and all the happy, fun, shiny things in life. And so when I would feel sad or depressed or embarrassed or ashamed, like I would never, first of all, admit those emotions to myself.
Mhm.
And then, of course, I could not admit those emotions to him. And
Yeah.
so our marriage became very like one dimensional. It was not deep. It was decent, but it wasn't deep at all until I learned that I'm going to have to go into the dark, into the scary places. First of all, for myself and really process like it is okay, Dana, for you to be uh sad. It is okay for you to have depressive feelings. I don't want to be clinically depressed, but it is okay for every day not to be sunshine.
Of
And
course it's okay. Not only is it okay, but it's very healthy for you
yeah,
to
it's
feel the
healthy.
full range of human emotions.
That's right. That's right. And it's normal. And so what I find is that there are so many people who are not in touch with their own emotions. I was talking to my 16-year-old about this. We have 4 kids and he's the youngest of the bunch. And so I was asking him, we were driving down the street and I was asking him a question. I don't even remember what the conversation was, but he was like, I don't get sad. And I was like, come on. You mean you're the only human being running around here that doesn't get sad? Like, of course you get sad. And we had to have this whole conversation. And I literally had to like coach him through when you feel like this is what you're feeling. And I was like, oh my word. Like, thankfully, I was able to have this conversation with him at 16 because he's going to be somebody's husband one day. And I don't want him telling his wife, I don't have emotions. Like we all have them and we have to be taught a lot of times how to access those. So what
Yeah.
you're saying about like being seen, and allowing yourself to be seen and then also seeing your spouse. There's this beautiful Hebrew word called gnosko in the
Mhm.
Bible and it is that word, like I grew up in the King James and so it's like Adam knew his wife and they had
Yeah,
children. And
mhm.
I remember being a kid and being like, what does knowing somebody have to do with having children? Because I knew how babies were born and I knew that you had to do more than just know somebody.
Right.
But that is what it is. It's like to be fully seen and to be fully known. It's the same desire that the Lord has for us. So when we hide parts of ourselves and we compartmentalize our lives and we only present our good to the Lord and not our pain, like we're not living in intimacy with him and therefore we can't live in intimacy with our spouses. So I'm really glad that you brought that out. Let me ask, Monica, did you and your husband, when you guys got married, did you have an intimate relationship immediately or was that something that you had to cultivate over time?
Oh, well, it depends on what kind of intimacy you're talking about. I think that we've definitely had areas of intimacy that have been stronger at times than others before I really, have studied now and understand like the full range of what intimacy is and all the different areas of it.
Mhm.
I would definitely not say that we were emotionally intimate when we got married. I mean, we certainly liked each other. We were very, hot for each other. But as far as emotional intimacy, he it, it has taken a lot for him to access his emotions. He was definitely not. I remember being pregnant with my first, and we went to this movie that was so sad, and I was just, crying. I mean, it was a very emotional, like, mother son scene, and I'm pregnant with my first little boy, and I remember my husband looking over it and being like, what is wrong with you right now? Like the cry, like you are embarrassing me. And I was like, what?" And it's like, and now I'm being loud in the theater, right? I'm like, and like he just couldn't handle it, right? It's just the display of emotion. But now we've raised 4 children together, 2 of them being girls. So now he's really good at emotions, but it took some time.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that because I think there's this fallacy of it's either like you either have an intimate relationship or you don't. And it has to be cultivated, like intimacy in its various forms, because just like you, like Sean and I, we had very much physical intimacy kind of going on before we got married. We did not do things God's way. But then it was like trying to cultivate all those other forms. First of all, I didn't even know that there were other forms. Okay. And then when I learned that there were other forms, I was like, oh, yeah, we don't have that. We don't have that one either. Oh, we certainly don't have that one. But the good news is that you can learn these things. So if you're listening right now and you're thinking, yeah, my spouse and I, we are roommates. We just basically go along to get along. We have no real connection. The good news is that these things can be learned. And so we're going to talk about some ways that you can start to get rid of that bad marriage advice and you can actually learn real ways to communicate and to connect more intimately. What I want us to talk about next, Monica, is this whole idea of how is intimacy cultivated, but I want to talk about it from the lens of when you've done things wrong. So if
Mm.
you look at a couple who maybe they've been taught bad marriage advice or they've been living out of that and now they're like we're 13 years in or we're 25 years in and we want to develop a closer relationship, but how do we do that? Like what would be kind of some of your first steps that you would tell a couple?
Yeah, well, let me just tell you the premise for the book is bad marriage advice, and the tagline is debunking myths that will make you miserable and what to do instead.
Love it.
And so I will tell you that the through line is communication.
Yeah.
So every couple that I've ever seen in my office, I have yet to find the exception to this. When I say, what can I, what can I do to make you feel like this went exceptionally well? And everyone will say, we need help with our communication. So the reality is that at the at the root of all the bad marriage advice is lazy communication. And what to do instead is learn to communicate better. So, intimacy is all about allowing someone to see the way you think, the way you
Mhm.
feel, who you are, the messy parts, the beautiful parts, the parts that you've never shown to anyone else, the parts that maybe you even aren't even aware of yourself.
Yeah.
So, marriage is a continuous stream of learning. So, one of the chapters is all about, my partner has changed so much. We have nothing in common. Well, of course, you're going to change.
Right.
Everybody changes every single moment of every day. After this conversation with you, Dana, I will be a different person than when I started, right? So it makes me crazy when couples come into my office and they'd be like, they've just changed so much. They're not the person I married. Of course, they're not. We change all throughout our lifespan, right? And so being able to be curious about your spouse and understand how they're changing, how they're growing, how they're learning, who they're becoming, how your life is affecting their life, how you are, learning things together, how you're growing apart, even understanding all those things and being able to communicate to each other is actually pretty tricky. But that is the basis for intimacy. It's being able to
Yeah.
say, I can show you who I am even if I'm not even sure like what this is yet.
Mm. I love that you said lazy communication because a lot of people will say we don't communicate. And I'm
Mhm.
like, everybody communicates.
Oh
You're
yeah,
communicating all day long, whether you're speaking or not, right? Like I said with my husband and I, the silent treatment is a form of communication. You're
absolutely.
communicating, I do not want to have anything to do with you. I don't respect
Right.
you enough to even tell you what's wrong with me.
Exactly. Whether or
And
not you greet each other at the door or how
that's
you look at
right.
each other across a room,
Right.
all of that is communicating something.
Yes, and so lazy communication. So I love that because if I can learn to be lazy, then that means that I can learn how to do it the right way. I can learn how to communicate properly. And
Mhm.
as I'm listening to you talk, again, we can't separate like intimacy from vulnerability because these things, even learning and being more curious about your spouse, you're going to learn some things about your spouse that you might not like. And in a real intimate relationship, you're not afraid to tell your spouse the parts that you do not like or
Mhm.
the parts that are causing problems. It's all about the way that you do it. So, case in point, this happened last night. Sean is like an early bird and I'm a night owl. So we've had this dynamic in our marriage the whole 26 years. And so he goes to bed at like 6:30 p.m. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but he goes to bed so early. Like I have not been to bed that early since I was forced to go to bed in middle school, you know? So now I'm grown and I can stay up to 2 o'clock in the morning if I want to. And so we always have this issue where he like goes to bed early. So I come in last night, I was working late. I'm like trying to stop working so late, but I was working late. And so I come in and I think I'm being quiet, right? In my mind, I am tiptoeing. And in his mind, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen like on Instagram, and it's like the wife and she's like banging pots and like throwing like all the things that can go wrong, right? Like I like trip over a shoe and then like something falls down and it's like 1 a.m. Oh, it's so late. And so he just kind of looks like he you can tell he's like unconscious, you know, but he like looks and he's like kind of coming to. And so I look at him and I'm like, what do I do? You know what I mean? I don't want to like be like sorry because I don't want to wake him up, but I don't want him to think I'm rude and like doing all this stuff on purpose. And so, you know, we're having this conversation and he's like, why do you go to bed so late? Like, why? I don't understand it. And I'm like, because I come alive at 11 p.m. Like there is something, I don't know why, but it's like I get so much creativity at night. I come alive. I'm like super alert. Now you catch me at 7 and 8 a.m. I'm like, that's not going to happen. But so these are like things that he didn't know that about me when we first got together. He's experiencing it. So when you talk about how my life affects his life, like this is how it happens. And that's kind of a silly example. It's not like a deep traumatic example, but there are things that we're going to learn about our spouse either by experience or maybe something that they share because we're curious and we're not going to like it. And so being able to say, like, this is causing me to not be able to sleep well, Dana. I need you to either go to bed earlier, or if you're going to come in super late like that, like, you might have to take a shower in the morning and not take one at night or something like that. Like, to be able to be vulnerable and honest and real enough to say, what you're doing, I don't like that. And how can we like fix this so that I don't become bitter and like resentful about your choices? I think that also is a part of intimacy.
Mm. So there's so much. Like I feel like I could go in like 19 different directions of what you just said.
Mm.
One of the chapters in my book is don't sweat the small stuff. You know, they always say like don't sweat the small stuff, but where do you think the big stuff comes from, right? Like you just if you don't sweat the small stuff for years, resentment just builds and it becomes a really big thing. So let's learn how to skillfully manage the small stuff before it grows into weeds and just chokes out all of the generosity and love and intimacy in the marriage, right? So that's one thing. Like let's learn how to address that. Let's collaborate on it. So like this idea of, you know, you being a night owl and him being an early bird, well, that's everyone's going to have that. Like 69 the Gottmans did research and learned that 69% of the issues in our marriage are unsolvable. Like you
Yeah.
can't fix the fact that you come alive at night and he needs to sleep and he comes alive in the morning and you're like, I'm still a zombie, right? Like most marriages have that introvert, extrovert, morning person, night person, or whatever. It's how do we learn to negotiate those things, right? And it's not compromise. It's not like I'll go to bed early for you and then we're going to resent that for the rest of our lives, right? We're not
Right. Right.
compromising. We're learning how to collaborate. So just right off the bat, you told me you have 4 kids. I'm
Hmm.
like, what a blessing for you to come alive at night because guess what? I'm the night owl in my relationship. And guess who waits up for the teenagers, right?
Yeah.
It's me, right? My husband gets up at 5:30 every morning, whether an alarm goes off or not. So at like 10, he's like done. He's cooked. And guess who's still out? Half
Yep.
my family. And so I wait up for the kids and I have those conversations late at night. He talks to them in the morning, during the day. It works out perfectly. That's how we've collaborated around that.
Yeah.
And yeah, there might be some negotiating on, you know, how many lights you turn on when you come in the bedroom late at night or when you take a shower or something like that. But when we look at it as like, this is a great team. Like I can get up early with the kids, get them up ready for school because, you know, I come alive in the morning and you can wait up late for them at night and you can hear about their dates and, you know, their activities and all the things because you come alive at night. How perfect is it that we have this awesome team that we can bring all these resources in for our kids and our family?
Yes, yes, yes. You have a quote, Monica, and you say that your approach is not about finding common ground, it's about building holy ground. I love that. So, how do you explain holy ground? What does holy ground look like to you?
I think holy ground, and I love that quote, but it didn't come from me, so I don't wanna
Oh,
take
oops,
credit
it's
for
on
any
your
of that.
website.
I mean, that's beautiful, I love it. What I would say, but in that quote, I think what holy ground is really an appreciation for, like, working together. It's like teamwork, it's
Yeah,
collaboration, it's cooperation, it's like learning how to take you married somebody different. Here's the thing about God is he created each of us differently. No two people are alike. And so you were very attracted to, they say opposites attract, right? You were
right.
attracted to someone who's very different from you. So you're not going to agree. But can you find holy ground? Can you find a way to appreciate your differences and make them strengths?
Mhm, mhm, and that's the work. That's the work that we will always be doing until our dying breath. If you really take this marriage thing and commit to it,
Absolutely.
we're always gonna be committing to doing that. So, Monica, tell a little bit about how people can find you. What is something that I know you've got the book coming out. What is something that if you could say this one thing to our audience, what would it be? And then tell people how they can find you.
Oh, one thing to the audience, I would
Yes.
say there is no greater endeavor in life than creating your happily ever after love story.
Mm,
How do you want to be remembered? What is the legacy you want to leave to your posterity? And how are you going to make that a reality, right? Most people just go through life living on autopilot. They don't know
mm,
why they do the things they do. They don't understand their patterns or the dynamics they're creating in their marriage. And it's so sad, right? When just like learning how to play a sport or an instrument or learning a new skill like cooking, it's going to be messy in the beginning. You're not going to be good at it, right? You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to get it wrong more than you're going to get it right. But over time, you keep practicing and practicing and practicing these skills, you create something so meaningful. So I would just say put your energy there into your relationship. Learn how to communicate, learn these relational skills, learn about the dynamics that you create in your marriage, and make it something that you can be super, super proud of. And then you can find out more about working with me, about my podcast, and the book on my website, which is my name, monicatanner.com.
awesome. And of course, we'll link to your website and the show notes of this podcast. Thank you so much, Monica. It's been really fun to get to know you. I'm going to be on your show, I guess, next week or something like that. And I'm just so grateful for, again, the work that you do. I am on this mission with you, sister, to lower the divorce rate because it's way too high. And, I was thinking about this last night with all the resources. There's so many resources. Oh my goodness. With all the resources out there, there's really no reason that if someone wants to learn these skills that they can't. Like there's free stuff, there's paid stuff. So friends listening, whatever you need to do, like Monica said, there is no greater joy. There is nothing, no greater investment of your time than building a marriage that is not only happy, but that is healthy and whole. So again, Monica, thank you so much for being with us. I really enjoyed this episode.
Thank you. I did too.